I'm Sarah,
And I'm Dawn.
and we got to be back by dark.
Yeah, we do. And this one's real dark. So dark they made a documentary on it and titled it Unseen.
But you seen it.
I did see it. Today we're going to talk about Anthony Sowell. It's probably one of the most prolific modern serial killer cases that no one talks about.
But we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, we're about to. Anthony Sowell created a house of horrors and was named the Cleveland Strangler. Here's the thing, though. No one was looking for the Cleveland Strangler. This neighborhood held the stench of decomposing bodies for years. Women kept disappearing, yet there was no news coverage about the missing women, no community alert, no police search parties. Few women managed to escape the House of Horrors, and even fewer reported the attacks to the police. Those that did report Anthony were often dismissed.
Of course. It's just women taking things out of proportion, making things up.
If the women had a criminal record or they were a known drug user, she wouldn't be taken seriously. Some of the families of the missing women took it upon themselves to form search parties and put up flyers with pictures and information of their loved ones. The police were not looking for these women.
No, so the families had to do the cop's job.
Yes. Anthony Sowell is an American serial killer, identified in the press as the Cleveland Strangler. He was arrested in October 2009 as a suspect in the murders of 11 women whose bodies were discovered at his Cleveland, Ohio duplex in the Mount Pleasant neighborhood.
That does not sound pleasant.
It does not. Not a whole lot about him is pleasant. He was born August 19th, 1959 in East Cleveland. His father, Thomas, was a womanizer and an alcoholic. He moved out when Anthony was a baby. He was mainly raised by his mother, Claudia, and his grandmother, Irene. He had 4 siblings. His older sister had some severe health issues and she passed away, leaving her 7 children for Claudia to raise. And she used the extra welfare money that she received from taking the kids in to buy a home on 1878 Page Avenue. But unfortunately, it wasn't long before Claudia began abusing her grandchildren by making them strip naked and tying them to the banister of the stairs. She would beat them with belts or electrical cords until they bled. Her granddaughter Leona said this would happen so often that they made a game out of it. And the objective of the game was to be the one that lasted the longest without crying.
It's pretty bad when things are so bad. Kids are making up games to get through the abuse.
They have to do something. Leona said Anthony would also go out of his way to create trouble for his cousins. He would secretly drink his grandmother's Pepsi, which he was not allowed to do, or he would start a fight and then blame Leona, who got punished, all because he wanted to watch. And then when he was 11, Leona was 10, and he started abusing her and raping her, and she said that he did that every day for almost 2 years. She said that she tried to report the rapes to the authorities, but nobody believed her.
Of course, it's just a kid making up stories to get attention.
Yeah, and it was her word against his.
Yeah, because no, that wouldn't happen. It's sad, something that bad. It's hard for people to understand that it's happening, so they just ignore it. If I don't pay attention to it, it's not really happening. That can't be happening around here.
No, Leona is on record saying, "I don't think the killings would have ever happened if somebody would have listened to me."
That's sad that that happens so often.
Anthony's younger sister, Tressa, described him as violent and aggressive, whereas those around the community would say he was kind and respectful.
Of course, he knew how to put a mask on already by that time around other people.
Yeah.
Because if somebody were to say something about him, nobody would believe them because, oh no, he's a very respectful child. That's a good guy.
People around did think he was a good guy. He would do things and not expect anything in return. He'd let people stay at his house. But Anthony's younger sister, she said he's violent and aggressive. So I guess something would change.
Or he just knew how to play people.
When he was 18, he did not have enough credits to graduate high school, so he enlisted into the military. He told his mom he was going to sign up for the Army. Claudia laughed at him and told him he'd never make it in the Army. So I guess to show her, he joined the Marine Corps because he saw that as being tougher. And he joined in January 1978. He had a girlfriend when he left for the Marines. Turns out she was pregnant with his baby. He claims to not have known that she was pregnant when he left, that she gave birth 8 months after he left, and he did end up sending home money.
After he found out?
I guess so. He seemed to really thrive in the Marines. He attended recruit training at Marine Corps Recruit Depot in Parris Island, South Carolina, went to Camp Lejeune in North Carolina to complete training as an electrician, and in July 13th, 1978, he was assigned to the 2nd Marine Aircraft Wing at Marine Corps Air Station at Cherry Point, North Carolina. In 1980, Sowell spent a year overseas with the 3rd Force Service Support Group, then returned to Cherry Point. He was then ordered to Marine Corps Base Camp Butler in
Okinawa,
Japan on January 20th, 1984. A year later, he transferred to Camp Pendleton in California for 3 days until his discharge on January 18th, 1985. And during his 7-year Marine Corps career, Corporal Sowell received a Good Conduct Medal with 1 service star, a Sea Service Deployment Ribbon, a Certificate of Commendation, and 2 letters of appreciation. While Anthony was in the Marines, serving in Japan, he met fellow Marine Kim Lawson, and he married her when they returned to the United States in 1981. And she did her best to keep his drinking under control so he wouldn't get kicked out of the Marines. Anthony was honorably discharged in 1985 and returned to his childhood home. And Kim filed for divorce on the same day that she was discharged from the Marines in 1985. She's like, I did my best to keep you from getting kicked out of the Marines, but I'm done. And when Anthony returned home, the crack epidemic was really hitting hard in his neighborhood. The Mount Pleasant area of East Cleveland at one time was a very desirable place to live. The streets were lined with oak and maple trees. You would see large homes with well-kept lawns, belonging mainly to wealthy black families. Unemployment was on the rise with the decline of the auto and steel industries, causing poverty to spread. The civil rights movement had a negative impact in the area because they started riots in the streets. Many people were scared and they moved. Small businesses are hurting too. They ended up either boarding up their doors and windows, or they turned into liquor stores or cash checking stations.
Yeah, because you might not be able to afford your groceries, but you sure can go get that 40.
Yeah.
But yeah, 80s, that was the height of the crack epidemic because it was cheap, a quick high.
Yeah, and there were like the civil rights movement, the riots and everything, people losing their jobs, the unemployment and all that. So people saw crack as kind of an escape from all this bad stuff, and that escape was highly addictive. So it's not something they could do like, having a drink after work to let loose. It is not the same.
No.
In 1989, a woman who was 3 months pregnant went to Sowell's home voluntarily. Melvette Sockwell said she had seen Anthony around, but she didn't know him. Her car had broken down, and he saw her while he was walking home. He stopped and offered to let her come and use his phone. She followed him because she'd seen him around town, and he had a reputation as a good guy.
As a good Samaritan.
He walked her up to his bedroom on the 3rd floor and attacked her. He bound Melvette's hands and feet with a tie and belt and then gagged her with a rag. He raped her several times. She told police Anthony choked her so hard that her body had started tingling. She said she thought she was going to die. She said Anthony told her to say her prayers because he was going to feed her and then kill her. Then he fell asleep, and Melvette made her way over to a window and was able to turn around and use her fingers to unlock and open the window, and she rolled out.
And that's hard to do. You're terrified out of your mind.
You're trying to be quiet?
You're trying to be quiet. Your hands are behind you, so you can't.
No, the only way this task is possible is if you're fighting for your life.
Yeah. Well, and she was fighting for her life and that of her unborn child.
Yeah, and she saw throwing herself out a window
as the only escape.
Right. Well, she yelled for someone to call the police, and someone did. The police and ambulance showed up at Anthony's house. Anthony was charged with attempted rape, and kidnapping. He got out on bail for this, and when he was out on bail, he raped another woman. But she didn't come forward and press charges at that time.
Yeah, she probably didn't think she'd be believed. Because most people aren't.
No, and even for this, he made a deal to plead guilty for the charge of attempted rape. He served 15 years in prison.
Which now you can be charged with actual rape, not just attempted rape, and you get out in 6 months.
Yeah, I guess that happens. 8 days after sentencing, Sowell was taken to the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections Prison in Lorain. In prison, Anthony went to the meetings of at least two 12-step programs, Alcoholics Anonymous and Adult Children of Alcoholics. In 1993, Sowell signed up for sex offender treatment but was turned down, and the reason he was turned down was he would not admit he was a sex offender.
That's like going to AA and then saying you never drink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going to AA, sometimes when you get a DUI, you have to go to classes,
Right.
and I'm assuming that that was kind of the same thing. But it would be like somebody who is an alcoholic going to those classes and saying they don't need to be there.
No, I don't touch alcohol. And step one is admitting that you have a problem.
Yeah. Apparently, step 5 in a lot of them is admitting you have a problem to yourself, someone else, and God.
Yeah.
He couldn't admit to any of it. And he might have been in denial, but Sowell was also a model prisoner for 15 years at 4 different Ohio penitentiaries. He had no major rule infractions on his record and only 4 minor violations. Seems he could do well with hard routines and structure, like how he excelled in the military.
And he also probably didn't have any women telling him what to do, because people like that, they can't handle a woman having authority over them.
True. It just seems like you take your eyes away from him and he can't act right.
Yeah, like when he was younger, other people thought he was a well-behaved child when he was really violent behind closed doors. In prison, people were watching him at all times.
In prison, he took courses called Living Without Violence, Cage Your Rage, Positive Personal Change, and Drug Awareness Prevention. Sowell had to deal with other prisoners' attitudes about attempted rape. A man named Carlton Pope, who served 30 years in Ohio prisons, said he met Sowell at Grafton Correctional Institution, where Sowell spent the last 9 years and 3 months of his stretch. Carlton Pope said, "I shunned him because not only did he seem demented and a psychotic pervert, he carried the stigma of a convicted rapist."
Yeah, a lot of times they're seen as cowards. They're like the bottom of the totem pole. Well, of course, technically the bottom is really child abuse.
Yeah, you hurt children, you hurt women.
Yeah, you ain't worth their time.
No. Despite his good behavior, the violence of Sowell's crime persuaded parole officials to repeatedly deny his request for release. He served his maximum sentence.
Well, at least there's that.
He was still in prison in 2002 when he learned that his father, Thomas Sowell, had died. But while in prison, Sowell won 2 small victories. He earned his GED on September 17, 2002, and the second is Sowell gave up alcohol and other intoxicants. So he got clean.
So I guess the AA helped.
I guess so. Sowell was diagnosed as being a low-risk offender after several psychological evaluations. And because of this, on June 20th, 2005, he walked out of prison a free man. No probational period was given. He had to register as a sex offender, but beyond that, he did not have to check in. They said that there was about a 6% chance of Anthony committing another sex crime.
Well, they was wrong.
They were wrong.
They were very wrong.
And they have since changed the criteria for that. He would be a high-risk offender today. So Anthony got out of jail in 2005. He was 45 years old. And one of the reasons that he was in jail so long, the whole 15 years, is because one of the stipulations to be out on parole is you have to have an address. You have to have somewhere to live. And Claudia wasn't having any of that.
No, she had to draw a line somewhere.
Yeah, I guess. So he lived with his sister Tressa for a few months before moving into his stepmother's home on 12205 Imperial Avenue. He moved into the 3rd floor of the home, making the 3rd floor his apartment. His stepmother moved into a nursing home a few months after he moved in, but he stayed mostly on the 3rd floor anyways.
So it was like he had the whole floor as his apartment. That way he didn't have to say, "Oh, yeah, I live with my stepmom."
Yeah. And this is around where he meets Lori Frazier. He met her while buying beer one day, and they hit it off and started dating, and she moved in pretty quickly with Anthony on the 3rd floor. At this time, Anthony was drinking, but he was not doing crack. Lori was, and he was trying to help her stop. Lori would disappear sometimes for days at a time, and she was incarcerated for a while. Anthony would walk 90 minutes to go see her. He said the money he saved by walking he could use to put in her commissary. When she got out, Anthony had hoped she would stay clean, but she didn't.
No, and it's so easy to get stuff in prison.
Yeah, she probably didn't stay clean in prison.
No.
Sometime in 2006, Anthony started smoking crack again. People noticed his appearance had changed. He looked gaunt and had dark circles under his eyes.
Well, yeah, because he was doing crack.
Yeah, and the guy that worked at the convenience store, like across the street, said that he had even seen Anthony buying crack outside.
Yeah, because that was just early 2000s, but still, that stuff was just on the corner.
Yep. In February 2007, Anthony was walking to his sister's when he came upon an elderly woman shoveling snow out of her driveway. He cleared her driveway for her, expecting nothing in return, and continued on to his sister's house. He started feeling weird and went to the hospital. He was having a major heart attack. They cleaned out clogged arteries and put in a pacemaker. He recovered and he returned to his factory job.
Which is actually realistic. We know people, more than one, who either that day or not even a week later, massive heart attack, they're back to work, doing a physical job.
Yeah, it's like everybody we know that happened to. Sowell worked in a factory until 2007, but then was laid off and had to depend on unemployment benefit. But he did go out to make extra cash by scrapping metal.
Which is actually pretty lucrative.
Yeah, pretty common around here.
Yeah.
There's even like signs on the side of the road, we'll pick up scrap metal.
For free.
For free, call this number. In April of 2007, Lori moved out, but she would still come and see Anthony sometimes. And sometimes when she came to visit, she said she noticed scratches on Anthony's face and a scratch on his neck that was so bad he had to get stitches. She noticed a hole in the wall that looked like it might have blood on it, but Anthony said some people had tried to rob him and he had to fight them off.
And she was still on crack this time, so not really thinking clearly, and so she probably just accepted it as was.
It's like, okay.
Yep.
Well, one day she came over to find Anthony digging in the backyard. He told her he was going to be putting a garden there. He never did. And in late June, neighbors started to notice a stench.
Yeah, plus it had started warming up.
Yeah, late June.
Yeah.
A woman living across the street from Anthony called the health department on June 29th, 2007 to report the smell. Others started filing complaints to the city. The smell was so bad that a lot of people that lived around Anthony's house, even if they didn't have air conditioning, they weren't going to be opening their windows to that stench.
It must have been bad if that type of neighborhood that's being described, people were actually calling authorities over it.
Yeah, and the city did come and investigate, but they didn't find a definitive cause for the smell. And right next door to Sowell's house was Ray's sausage factory, and they ended up taking the blame for the stench.
Well, I'm not going to go shopping somewhere that it smells like rotting flesh.
No, not for, especially not for meat.
And that's what I'm saying. I mean, if they're not selling meat and it smells like rotting flesh, then there's really a problem. But
Well, they did not want that to be what they were known for.
no.
They spent around $20,000 in modifications to the factory's waste system, and the smell did not go away. In mid-2008, Lori broke up with Anthony for good this time. She said she was trying to get clean, but she couldn't do that while Anthony was still using.
No, you can't. I mean, it takes a lot for somebody to get to the point to where they truly want to get clean. And if those around you are still using, you're not going to make it.
No, you have to isolate yourself from it.
Yeah, you have to separate yourself from that environment.
Mm-hmm. In September 2008, Sowell invited Vanessa Gray over to drink and smoke crack. He told her he was a Marine and it was his birthday.
Well, he was a Marine, so he didn't completely lie.
It wasn't his birthday.
No.
Well, she went with him. He walked her to his house and up to the third floor. She said the house was absolutely disgusting, and she noticed that the smell got worse as they went up the stairs. They went up to his room and sat on the bed. She said he took one hit off the crack pipe and just punched her in the face and told her to take her clothes off. If she didn't, he would throw her in the closet and forget about her. Vanessa said Anthony's eyes had seemed to turn evil and black as he told her she didn't deserve what he was about to do to her.
Well, nobody deserves what he's apparently going to do to these people.
No. Anthony raped her repeatedly throughout the night. Occasionally, he would go into these rants where he talked about his exes and women on crack, and then he'd snap out of it and talk normal again. He told Vanessa she wasn't like other girls. In the morning, he let her go to the bathroom. She went down the hall and glanced into a bedroom where she saw a headless body, partially wrapped in plastic.
I can't imagine the panic that went through her at that point, even after everything she had already gone through.
She immediately knew that she had to stay calm when she saw that, though.
Oh, yeah.
He's definitely going to kill her if she were to scream or anything.
If he figures out what she's saying.
Yeah, well, even still, he told her he was afraid to let her go because she would tell on him.
Well, yeah, from what he did to her, but if he knew that she saw the body, I mean, rape's bad enough, but having a headless body?
Yeah, she wasn't going to make it out of there.
No.
Well, she assured him there was nothing to tell. She told him, yeah, things were a little rougher than what she's used to, but there was no reason to tell anyone. So Anthony let Vanessa get dressed, walked her to the front door, and let her go. Vanessa had reported a previous attack to the police, and they never did anything about it, so she didn't really expect anything to happen if she were to report this one. She told herself she deserved what happened to her because she was smoking crack.
I don't care what you're doing. You do not deserve that. No one does.
No, but in her mind, she was garbage and she deserved it. That was her own guilt.
Yeah, that's her own shame. It's a common reaction for rape victims to have.
But she did not deserve it.
No. And it's pretty bad that it had happened before. She reported it and nothing was done, which of course compounded her thoughts that she deserved it.
Yep, she found an abandoned building, went in there, went to sleep, and slept for like 3 days. And then a few months later, December 8th, 2008, Gladys Wade went to Imperial Beverages to buy some beer. She had started walking to the bus stop to get back to her sister's when Anthony saw her walking and told her Merry Christmas. And he asked her if she wanted to come over and drink. She politely declined and started to walk away. He grabbed her, swung her around, punched her in the face, dragged her into his house and up the stairs to the 3rd floor. She had hit her head and was slipping in and out of consciousness, and when she woke fully, she noticed her turtleneck had been removed. She said Anthony's eyes were glowing like the devil as he had his hands around her throat, and she was gasping for air. She got loose from his grasp and started to run down the stairs. He chased after her, and they both fell down the stairs. As she fumbled her way around the 2nd floor, she ended up slicing her hand on a broken piece of glass. She got to the front door, but Anthony had caught up to her. She scratched at his face and eyes, and he put his hands around her neck and started choking her again, so she grabbed his crotch and twisted as hard as she could. He screamed and let go.
Yeah, that's the next step beyond kneeing him in the balls is you grab it, squeeze, pull, twist, don't let go till you can get free.
There were some men outside on the sidewalk, and she screamed, "This man just attacked me." But Anthony yelled out, "Don't listen to her. She stole my watch." And the men just ignored both of them. But Gladys kept running, and she ran into a nearby pizza place and asked them to call the cops. They said they didn't want any part of whatever was going on. And a matter of fact, just leave because you're getting blood everywhere.
That's some baloney.
So she left there, kept running. She saw a police car, flagged them down, and they took her to the hospital.
Wait, this whole time, her turtleneck's still off.
Correct.
I don't care if somebody says, no, she stole my watch. She's topless.
Right.
There's obviously more going on here.
Yeah. If somebody starts to steal your watch, you'd be like, take your shirt off.
I can, be like, okay, I'm going to take off my shirt and then steal his watch. Depending on what you look like, he might not complain.
Right? But that's just not really how things go. Okay. She got 12 stitches in her thumb from the broken glass, and pictures were taken of her scratches and bruises on her neck and face and legs. They took the rest of her clothes for evidence, and she met with a detective and told him that there would be scratches on Anthony's face. They obtained a search warrant and went to Anthony's home where they found Gladys's turtleneck on the 3rd floor.
Again, she's running around topless.
Right.
And they don't think anything's wrong.
Yeah, they found it. Anthony was arrested on suspicion of rape, but he was released 2 days later. Why, you may ask? Gladys was not credible, and there was insufficient evidence.
I call bullcrap.
I guess the clothes that they took for evidence, the pictures that they took of her face and her neck and her legs, of all the scratches and the bruises.
And the blood.
And the blood, the stitches. It wasn't enough. It was not enough. And then, when they went to arrest him, I'm sure they caught a whiff of the stench surrounding his home.
They smelled it, but they didn't want to take the time to investigate anything else. They wanted out of there.
Well, they didn't seem to notice. When they questioned Sowell of the attack, he said Gladys was trying to rob him, and they took his word over hers.
Of course, because her being topless was just normal. With blood.
Your everyday Robert, always topless.
Always topless with a bloody thumb.
Yep. They took his word over hers. And like these cops that went to his house and didn't notice the stench, they weren't the only ones because Anthony was having home visits from the sheriff's office every 90 days, where he's a sex offender. They have to come and check on him. They don't come in the house, but they knock on the door, have a little chit chat every 90 days. On September 22nd, 2009, he met them at the door and chatted for a bit, and they went on their way. Also, on September 22nd, 2009, Latundra Billups was hanging out outside of the Imperial Beverage when she saw Anthony walking down the street. She knew Anthony pretty well and had even been to his house to party a few times. He asked her if she wanted to come over and drink and smoke crack. She hesitated because she had started to hear rumors of Anthony's violent behavior. She didn't really think he would hurt her because she knew him too well. It's also difficult to make good decisions when you are on crack.
I don't care how well you know somebody. If there are rumors going around about that person being violent, you might want to take a second before you, yeah, sure, I'll go into a secluded area with you.
Yeah, I'm not trying to mess around and find out. Well, they went to his house, and he led her to the second floor. She found this odd because they had always gone to the third floor. He said the third floor was too messy.
You think?
She didn't know that what he meant by too messy was that he actually had 4 bodies decomposing up there.
Yeah, it was pretty messy.
Right? So they're hanging out, smoking crack, when Anthony puts his hands around Latundra's neck.
I see a theme developing here.
You sure do. She pushed him off of her, and he punched her in the face. He took his shirt off, and she could see the outline of his pacemaker. That's when she knew that the rumors were true, because word on the street from other women that he had attacked was that their attacker had an outline of a pacemaker. He forced her to lay down on her stomach, wrapped a cord around her neck, and started to rape her. But Latundra, she was able to get a couple of fingers between her neck and the cord. He pulled hard on the cord, and she ended up passing out for about 3 hours.
Yeah, I'm sure if she didn't get her fingers there, she'd be dead.
Yeah, for sure. When she came to, Anthony was sitting in a chair smoking a cigarette. Neither one of them expected her to wake up, and it shocked them both. He told her he was going to have to kill her. She said, "No, you don't. I won't tell anybody. I'm not coming back here, but I won't tell anyone." He told her he had just been going through some things, and he walked her to the door. He let her go.
Oh, that's an excuse. I'm just going through some things.
Yeah, I'm just not, not doing well.
I'm having a bad time.
Having a bad time. Just gotta beat a woman sometimes. She was hesitant to go to the police.
Yeah, I wonder why.
But she did go to the hospital, and they did do a rape kit. And her rape kit was given to the sex crimes unit, but it wouldn't be looked at for over a month. So on October 19th, 2009, Sean Morris was out looking for a fix. She had been trying to stay clean, but the cravings had gotten the best of her. She didn't want to go home and fight with her husband about it in front of her kids, so she decided to look for a place to stay for the night, and she could just have it out with him in the morning after the kids leave for school. Anthony let her stay at his house without incident, and in the morning she left and started to walk home. But she got a few houses down and realized that she had left her ID at Anthony's, and she had to turn around and go back and get it. He let her back in, but Sean said something about him had changed. Once inside, he locked her in a chokehold and dragged her up to the second floor. Sean screamed, and Anthony went around closing all the windows. She saw a window that was still open and started lowering herself down, fully naked, but she was getting out of there. He saw her and tried to pull her back in. When he couldn't, he forcefully shoved her down, making her crash into the ground between his house and Ray's sausage. She broke her skull, some fingers, and 8 ribs. Anthony went outside and tried to pull her back around into the house, but a small crowd had formed having seen a woman fall out of a house,
As a crowd would form.
as a crowd would.
It's not every day, even in bad neighborhoods, you see a naked woman falling out of an upstairs window.
I would hope not.
Yeah,
I hope that is not an everyday occurrence.
that should not be an everyday occurrence.
And Ray's Sausage Factory had a security camera, so there's footage of him also butt naked trying to drag her around the house. But Anthony saw his neighbor Donald and told him that they were just having rough sex and she fell out the window. Donald did not believe him and called 911.
Good job, Donald. Somebody with some sense.
Everybody is just turning a blind eye to everything that they see anymore. But Donald called 911.
Good on you.
Sean woke up in the hospital 3 days later and asked a nurse if she could use the phone to call her husband and let him know where she was. The nurse said, "Your husband rode in the ambulance with you. He knows where you are."
Oh, crap.
She says, "That is not my husband."
No.
Anthony called Sean and told her if she told anybody what really happened, he would kill her. She told police that they were hanging out and she did fall out of the window. She told her husband that she was hit by a car. On October 27, 2009, police follow up with Latundra Billups to talk about her attack. She was hesitant, but she spoke with police. 2 days after talking with Latundra, a SWAT team arrived at 12205 Imperial Avenue, ready to arrest Anthony Sowell. He was not home. What they found was a nightmare scenario of decomposing bodies.
Well, yeah. Decomposing bodies, that would be a very much a nightmare scenario.
Yeah, I would say so. And the officers said that there were so many dead flies in the floor, they could hear crunching with every step that they took. Also, with every step that they took, the stench kept getting stronger. They cleared each room as they made their way to the third floor. Once they were up there, they reached a locked door that had a bunch of clothes in the floor shoved in front of it. They burst through the locked door and immediately recoiled because the stench just greatly intensified.
You know the stench was bad if they had things blocking the air being able to get through.
Right, and also every neighbor has already been calling the city about this smell, so you can smell it all down up
Yeah.
and down the street.
Yeah, if the rest of the house is bad, you can only imagine how horrific that room was.
Yeah. They found 2 dead bodies in the floor of the sitting room, a pile of dirt beneath the basement stairs, and a body was found there almost completely wrapped in duct tape. Cadaver dogs led them to the third floor crawl space, and they found 2 more bodies. One was shoved in a black trash bag, and one was under some dirt. They took the cadaver dogs to the backyard, where he alerted them to an area near the back steps. They dug and found a 6th body. They eventually had to put a chain link fence around the home because a crowd started to gather outside of Anthony's house.
Looky loos.
Yes, looky-loos. People watched bodies and body bags being removed from the home. One woman said she even drove to Anthony's sister's house because she thought they were pulling Anthony out of the house in a body bag.
Yeah, because people still thought he was a stand-up guy.
Right. He saw the commotion of the emergency vehicles at his house and he went to his sister's house. So she thought he was being pulled out in a body bag, the lady that went over there. No, he was like playing video games with his nephews. So she was just glad to see he was okay.
Yeah. She wouldn't be for long.
No, no. The police came to Tressa's house, but Anthony had already ran. And before he left, he told his sister, "All the things people are saying about me is true. He didn't know why he did what he did. He must just be off in the head."
That's a convenient excuse.
It's another, "I'm just going through some things."
Yeah. It's not my fault.
No. This is when Anthony became a wanted man as the police searched for him. Only 2 days passed until he was recognized on the street and someone called the police.
Somebody actually did something other than turning a blind eye?
Yeah,
Crazy.
I don't know. Police were still searching Anthony's home and property. They brought in thermal lights to look through walls. They brought in backhoes to dig up the backyard and found 4 more bodies. The detective was searching through the basement and found a bucket. Inside the bucket was something wrapped in paper. When he unwrapped the paper, he found a human skull. This brought the total number of bodies in the house up to 11.
Why do you need to keep a human skull in a bucket? Like, seriously.
I don't know, unless he was just trying to figure out how else to dispose. I don't know. why he did what he did.
Like, maybe if there's a bucket, a head, and then some acid.
Get that far.
Apparently not.
Also, he was on crack.
True.
I mean,
Maybe he thought it was talking to him.
keep forgetting that fact. The news that they kept finding bodies spread pretty quickly through the community and really throughout Cleveland. Anyone with a missing loved one in the area was coming forward here looking for answers. Family and friends that were missing someone brought pictures of their loved ones to put on a wall that somebody had started there. So when people started hearing about what was going on here, that this was a crime scene that they were pulling women out of that had been murdered, family members and friends of people that had been missing a loved one just started crowding outside, holding up pictures of their loved one.
Hoping for an answer.
Yeah. One side of that answer is closure, and the other side of that is hope is gone.
Yeah. Along with what happened in the final hours of these women.
Yeah. That is not something that they want to think about may have happened to their loved one, but they also wanted to know what happened. But most of the bodies were in such advanced decomposition that they couldn't even determine the age or the race of the victim. Autopsies did confirm that they were all African American women. It was confirmed 8 victims' cause of death was due to strangulation, and whatever was used to strangle them was still tied around their neck. Police and the coroner tried to identify the women by urging those with missing loved ones to submit their DNA to find matches. And as the body count rose, police found and arrested Sowell on October 31st.
Halloween.
Halloween. That was a treat.
Yes. Happy Halloween to us.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
He was held on a $6 million bond. His trial was repeatedly delayed, first to February 14th, 2011, at the request of Sowell's defense attorneys.
Happy Valentine's Day.
They were requesting more time to prepare, and later, on May 2nd, at the request of the prosecution, due to scheduling conflicts. Through DNA, they were able to identify the 11 victims. On November 5th, 2009, the first of the 11 victims was identified as Tanya Carmichael, a 53-year-old African-American woman who disappeared more than a year earlier. Her body was found buried in the backyard. She appeared to have been strangled and was identified through the use of DNA evidence. Her mother had reported her missing in December 2008. On November 5th, 2009, the second victim was identified as Talasha Fortson, a 31-year-old African-American woman who disappeared 5 months earlier. Although she had been missing since June, her mother did not report her missing until she had heard the news coverage regarding the dead bodies discovered in Sowell's home. On November 8, 2009, 3 more bodies were identified. Crystal Dozier was a 38-year-old African-American woman who went missing in May 2007. Dozier, the mother of 7 children, had a criminal record and a history of drug abuse. She lived in the area where her body was discovered. Her family reported her missing to the Cleveland Police Department. This was not the first time that she had gone missing, and the family accused the police of failing to investigate.
Well, yeah.
So the family took it upon themselves to post the flyers and call hospitals.
That's pretty bad when the families have to do the jobs that the cops don't want to do.
Right, and they're getting so many missing persons, and it's like all of them, they're like,
Oh, they're probably just out on a bender.
Yeah, they'll be back when they're back.
Yeah, or they just took off because they don't want to be with you.
Imelda Amy Hunter was a 47-year-old African-American woman, a beautician, mother of 3. She had a criminal record and a history of drug abuse. She did not live in the area where her body was found, but she did visit frequently. A previous injury left her unable to use one of her arms. Her family did not report her missing until after the police began removing bodies from Sowell's house. Michelle Mason was a 45-year-old African-American woman who was last seen in October 2008. She was a mother with a criminal record and a history of drug abuse. She lived in the area where her body was found. According to records, the police conducted a full investigation when her family reported her missing.
The one.
Yeah. Records of missing persons going back to Sowell's June 2005 release from prison are being searched, and DNA testing is being conducted on the bodies found at Sowell's house. East Cleveland police are also reopening several cold cases from the late 1980s The murders by strangulation used a similar MO and stopped when Sowell was arrested in 1989.
Yeah, because these sort of people will only stop if they're dead or arrested for either that or another crime. They're not going to stop on their own.
Nope. The FBI is gathering information to see if Sowell may be linked to unsolved cases in cities where he once lived. Chances are he does.
Right.
The bodies of 3 women, 2 of them suspected drug users, turned up near Sowell's Page Avenue home.
Well, that did seem to be his type.
He does have an MO. In May 1988, the body of 36-year-old Rosalind Gardner was found in her home on Hayden Avenue. She had been strangled. Carmela Karen Prater, 27, a resident of Page Avenue and a suspected drug user, was found in an abandoned home on First Avenue, just off Hayden, on February 27, 1989. The cause of death is unknown. A month later, on March 28th, the body of another suspected drug user, Mary Thomas, 27, was found near an abandoned building on First Avenue. The red ribbon that was used to strangle Thomas was still around her neck.
Yeah, but that kind of goes off his MO. He liked to do it in his own home.
Right, but before he moved into his stepmother's home, he lived with like 20 people. Not 20 people, but a lot. There were a lot of people in the house.
Right.
But there's a lot of unanswered questions. Like,
For instance?
why didn't the police pursue the charges against Sowell after a bloody topless woman said he attacked her on Imperial Avenue in December 2008? Like, why?
Well, probably because she did something to provoke him.
Like, steal his watch.
Like steal his watch. Yes. That's totally appropriate.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, several legal experts have said that there was enough evidence for a grand jury to indict Sowell. Authorities decided the woman wasn't credible and dropped the case. 6 women whose bodies were found at Sowell's home disappeared after the cops let Sowell go from this incident.
Because they didn't think that the woman was telling the truth about the rape. Because women make these things up.
Oh, so frustrating.
It is.
Okay, well, now they got him.
Good.
His trial lasted for 3 weeks. The days were filled with testimony from surviving victims, as well as testimony from family members of the deceased victims. The jury took 15 hours to deliberate and settle on a guilty charge, and the Ohio serial killer Anthony Sowell gets the death penalty. And it only took the judge 45 minutes to say that. After the jury said guilty of the first sentencing, it was 45 minutes, and judge is like, death sentence.
Yeah.
And after Sowell's conviction in December 2011, his former residence on 12205 Imperial Avenue was demolished by order of the city's leaders.
Yeah, I don't think anybody wanted that house to stay standing.
No.
Not even just the horrific things that happened.
Shut it down.
The stank. You ain't getting that stank out of nothing.
On January 21st, 2021, Sowell was transferred to the Franklin Medical Center in Columbus so he could begin to receive end-of-life care for an unspecified terminal illness. And he remained at the Franklin Medical Center until his death on February 8th, 2021.
So he didn't even get the death penalty. Like, they didn't even kill him.
Correct.
It doesn't matter what your personal opinions on the death penalty are. It was decided that, and those families, that just means that those families did not get a chance to look at him and see him get the punishment.
Right, he was in prison for 12 years.
They didn't get to see him strapped down and whatever method was chosen for his death penalty.
Nope.
He just was in a hospital bed with people taking care of him.
That's right.
So in a way, the families didn't even get their final
Justice.
Well, justice, but closure was
Yeah.
what I was trying to think of. They were probably just told about it at a later time that he was gone.
Oh, yeah. Well, February 8th is my birthday, so
Happy birthday, Dawn!
I guess so. And this case was profiled on the series premiere of the investigation discovery show Killer Instinct. Also a documentary film titled Unseen. It's about the victims and survivors of Sowell's crimes. And on July 16th, 2021, ground was broken for the Garden of 11 Angels Memorial on the former Sowell property. It was dedicated on November 6th, 2021.
Well, that's nice.
Yep. Yeah, at least there's something going on there.
Yeah, some sort of memorial of what happened and the women who were taken too early.
rather than just a house of horrors.
Right.
Well, that's all I have on Anthony Sowell.
Okay. Well, good riddance to him.
Yep. And if anybody has a suggestion on a case, you can find us on Facebook, Back by Dark, and we are on Instagram and YouTube. You could send instant messages. Come find us. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.